Well, for better or worse, we've entered a brand new era. My channel may no longer be awe-inspiring on its own, but it's home. Whereas this was always a place where you could find stale jokes and pointless cameos, going forward it will feature only jokes and cameos that are stale and pointless.
Yeah, wait, what?
And I say, from here on forward, comic book issues will be the 7th or 8th most popular comic book review show on the internet. Eventually. Thank you. But times change, and so must I. I gotta start washing my hands. From here on forward, I am not the last angry geek. I am Brian Heinz, the last angry geek. Enjoy the show! And welcome back to Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, Brian Heinz, the last angry geek. When something captures your imagination, it's a sort of magic. When a story composed of drawings and word balloons enthralls you, it's a sort of magic. When you sacrifice a virgin on an altar in a circle drawn out of goat's blood, well, the less said about last weekend, the better. But magic has been a part of our story culture since time immemorial. And it continues today with characters like Harry Potter, John Constantine, and of course, Doctor Strange. But Strange is a doctor in a very literal sense, and what's the stronger desire? To save a life, or protect mankind from the arcane and supernatural? Let's find out as we review Doctor Strange, The Oath, a 4-part miniseries written by Brian Vaughan of Runaways and Saga fame, and drawn by Marcos Martin, artist of Daredevil and Spider-Man: One Moment in Time. The book opens with future Spider-Girl Arana and Iron Fist in a waiting room. Both are beat up, and no, Iron Fist doesn't know where Luke Cage is. This is where all the superheroes in New York go for off-the-books medical care. You can imagine how busy it was when Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark was on Broadway. That's still funny, right? I know you promised us stale and pointless jokes, but aren't you overdoing it, old man? Out of the pouring rain, Wong brings in his nearly dead master, Dr. Stephen Strange. The ER's operator, the night nurse, excuses her patients. Stephen is going to need all her attention for now. Wong came home to find their house burglarized, Stephen shot. But why ask him when Dr. Strange can tell her the details himself in his astral form? A daredevil by way of Roy Harper thief named Brigand explains how he pulled off his latest heist to his mysterious employer. The man is upset that he shot Dr. Strange, but what choice did Brigand have? He used Hitler's suicide pistol to put a silver bullet in Strange, but his boss is unconvinced that a thief could kill the Sorcerer Supreme, no matter how mystical his weapon. But at least they have the elixir. If it works like it's supposed to, the boss will destroy it. Night Nurse is a bit taken aback by the floating Stephen Strange. As they run through his medical history, he's reminded of the car accident that destroyed his surgeon hands. How he sought out the Ancient One for a cure, but ended up becoming his disciple, and is now Earth's preeminent sorcerer. Night Nurse operates while Stephen kibitzes, but she is a doctor. Night Nurse is just more literate than Night Doctor. Strange has heard of her. Saved by superheroes, she works behind the scenes to save them, and may want to be one herself. No, she says, that's not true. But Stephen teases that her cape must just be a fun fashion statement. And what's wrong with wearing a cape? Especially when it's not a cape, but a blanket that you're pretending is a cape, and you're over 40. Oh, right, everything I just said. She tries to include Wong in the conversation, but he isn't interested in banter. This is his fault, and it started when Dr. Strange learned of his illness. A short while ago, Strange came across a prescription med for brain tumors. Wong had wanted to wait until he'd secured a replacement to tell Stephen, but yes, he's dying. Strange is upset. He wants to treat Wong, but his shaking hands remind him that his surgery days are over. Wong's body will remain strong until the end, so the doctor takes him on a journey to Chinatown. Stephen has an occult text that has led him to believe a pocket dimension exists inside a small shop. However, when thugs decide to mug them, Wong fights them off while Stephen locates the portal inside a Good Luck Cat statue. Inside, he'll find Otkid the Immortal, imprisoned with his potion meant to erase what troubles the mind of man, a literal brain tumor cure. Wong doesn't want him to risk his life, but the first oath Stephen Strange ever took was the Hippocratic Oath. He'll do whatever he can for a patient. Inside, it's even worse than Wong suspected. Back in surgery, Stephen explains the battle took place a month ago as a weakened Wong falls over. The wizard's worker Wong, a wise warrior of the weird, wastes into a wizened form as the weekend wanes. The source is finally paying for itself. Strange explains that it would be unethical not to test the potion before giving it to Wong. He's still sick. Strange returns to his body, now bullet-free, and further explains, they discovered that the potion just doesn't cure tumors, it cures cancer, period. The mysterious boss from earlier has reached a similar conclusion in his lab that also contains mystic artifacts. He asks his assistant to summon the overlords, as he puts it. Stephen wants to leave, but Night Nurse reminds him that he was just shot. We flash back to seeing Brigand pull off some daredevil-like flips to avoid being blasted with eldritch energy before he upside-down shoots Stephen. They need to get the elixir back, so Night Nurse insists on joining them, which Stephen argues is just her superhero wannabe fetish kicking in. No, she's his primary caregiver, and she needs to make sure he stays alive. However, since Night Nurse sounds vaguely pornographic, he'll just call her Watson, because God forbid he should ever ask her what her name is. They head into a dank, foggy netherworld known as the Bronx. Stephen had a portion of the formula tested by an old medical colleague, Dr. Jonas Hilt. They wonder if that's how Brigand found out about the potion, but Stephen knows Hilt wouldn't betray him. He had every chance to turn on Stephen in the past. We flash back to when Dr. Strange was Dr. Dickhead, and he's telling a man that he won't operate on him because he's not rich enough to afford him. Dr. Hilt arrives and takes Stephen out into the hall to give him a good shaming, but Stephen has no shame, and he won't help this poor but good man when so many rich and powerful people need his help instead. Save my life! No. Thanks, Obamacare. This thoughtful skit was brought to you by your U.S. government. We're huge, and we're everywhere. We'll get around to fixing healthcare sooner or later. Meanwhile, thanks for blaming everything on the last guy. That ought to hold those SOBs. I know it's still on. Stephen is staring at his bandaged hands when Hilt talks to him about the car accident. He introduces Dr. Nicodemus West, who operated and saved his hands. But when Strange learns he's lost some of his manual dexterity, he nearly kills West. Dr. Hilt explains that the extensive nerve damage was unrepairable, but he still is furious as the patient he refused to treat earlier gloats outside. Jonas was the one who found out the potion cures cancer. They find his lab destroyed, the sample gone, and Hilt dead. Wong faints again, and Strange's patience is up. Only someone familiar with Dr. Strange's magic could have gotten Brigand into his sanctum, a fellow student of the Ancient One. He instantly suspects his former friend, Baron Mordo. Last I'd heard, Mordo had terminal cancer due to his exposure to black magic, making him a prime candidate to steal the elixir. While the train they're on is over the Harlem River, Strange opens the doors, then they leap out. They're tracing Brigand, and this is where he got out. They wind up in yet another pocket dimension. There's a single door, but they can probably break it down until Night Nurse puts her Fallout skills to work and picks the lock with a hairpin. Dr. Strange is surprised the trick worked and tells Night Nurse she should wear her hair like that more often, as they're attacked by several robots, including an old Ultron model and several Iron Man armors. Wong and Strange destroy the robotic guardians only to find that Brigand has slipped up on them and taken Night Nurse hostage. In a flashback, Reginald Pavlish, the man Strange wouldn't operate on, thanks Dr. West for destroying Dr. Strange's career. West is horrified. Stephen is a brilliant surgeon and he would never purposely deny the world Stephen's skills, but Pavlish is indifferent. He'll look into alternative healthcare so he can survive long enough to see Stephen suffer. Nurse notices Brigand has a deviated septum. He's probably had a lot of broken noses and capers gone wrong, and she smashes the back of her head into his face. Wong disarms him, and Strange restrains him in magical chains. Brigand has been enchanted so that he can't reveal his employer. Stephen puts him to sleep and enters his captive's mind. Wong is weak again. He hasn't been taking his medicine since the shooting. Unfortunately, Night Nurse doesn't have any to offer him as the company that makes it, Timely Pharmaceuticals, won't allow a generic version. Stephen pursues Brigand to force answers, but since they're in the realm of dreams, he's protected by Nightmare, who's teamed up with Dormammu. Except Dormammu's sister Umar isn't there because she always is, I guess. Also, Nightmare's steed is black. These are just false memories Brigand is throwing at Strange. If Brigand doesn't talk, Strange will erase his memories just like he erases the Phantom villains. Fine. This is the man, whom Dr. Strange doesn't recognize, but we do. Dr. Nicodemus West. Dr. West is meeting with his overlords, aka the board of directors at Timely Pharmaceuticals. He's their CEO. The board wants to know if he's destroyed the potion yet. No, he won't do anything without their okay. Since the potion can't be mass-produced, it must be destroyed. They reason that humanity must earn its accomplishments, but West knows they're just worried about losing money on medicine. This seems like a somewhat familiar argument. Celebrate the release of Jurassic World the sequel with a new, specialer edition of Jurassic Park the original. Now with new alternate takes of the famous scenes you wish you were watching, instead of Chris Pratt running around with his hand stretched out. Well, you read what some other scientists did, and then you copied it. You didn't earn your knowledge. Your scientists were so concerned with whether or not they could bring dinosaurs back to life, they never stopped to think if they should. Well, yes, Ian, that's true. On the other hand, if we didn't do that, you'd be out of a job because no one would need to hire a gas bag whose only practical experience is listing chaos theory on his resume to approve our theme park. Now, do you want this boatload of money or not? Call me Will Smith because I'm about to sign my John Hancock. The board has lost faith in Brigand and wants West to fight fire with fire. But he hasn't used real magic in years. Well, if he wants his secrets to remain secret, he'll use his magic to kill Dr. Strange. Back in the physical realm, Strange knows that West was the doctor who operated on his hands, and Night Nurse recognizes his name as the CEO of Timely Pharmaceuticals. Strange almost keels over from his bullet wound, and the nurse is concerned that he and Wong are pushing themselves too hard. Strange banishes Brigand. Night Nurse is a bit shocked since she thinks he should go to the police. There isn't enough evidence to convict Brigand, so he's taking the law into his own hand and imprisoning the thief in his own mind. So this is my eternity, trapped in my own mind with only myself? Hi! I love it! Oh my god, you are so good looking! Dr. West is working on some evil mojo. Heading back to Nurse's clinic, they wonder how Dr. West is connected to the Ancient One. But they find that the Night Nurse's clinic has been set on fire. Not a normal arson, this fire is bellowing from the hellish maw of a demon. The thing is called a Mericant Hellguard. It's killed every Sorcerer Supreme who ever went up against it, so naturally Steven is all in. It spears off his Eye of Agamotto and the Cloak of Levitation, and he falls into a convenient pile of trash. The Hellguard swallows both artifacts. Wong warns his master that his blasts won't penetrate the Hellguard's hide. Before anything more can be said, his manservant gets tentacled away. Night Nurse gives the Hellguard a stern talking to, and bam, tentacle. So Steven uses the Hitler gun to wound the creature. But with his nerve-damaged hands, it's not a good idea to aim a gun. He does manage to shoot it in the eye, killing it, and then disintegrates the weapon. He thanks his Watson. Staring into her eyes helped calm his nerves. But the pitching of Wu must wait as the Hellguard regurgitates amulet and cloak. As long as we're talking about magical cloaks, I was going to have a longtime character make a cameo here, but I quit my job a few weeks ago and he disappeared in a puff of copy-ridden smoke. Oh well. Besides, I retired him after I did Critics and Creatures anyway, which you should go watch. He can now follow the creature's summoning trail back to Dr. West. Night Nurse and Wong are following him. He relents when they point out that they're no safer in her burning house than by his side. West sees them coming and bang! They're there. However, he quickly contains them, explaining this vault is where he keeps his black magic artifacts, but this containment spell speaks of a higher degree of skill, and Strange wants to know West's story. After failing to heal Steven's hands, West began to drink. Desperate to make things right, he followed Steven's trail across the world until he too met the Ancient One. He only missed Strange by days, and the Ancient One concedes to train him before he dies. Now, Steven doesn't believe it, but West explains that the Ancient One was hedging his bets. In case Steven failed to become Sorcerer Supreme, why not create another candidate from a similar background? A token of the Ancient One backs up his claims, and we can see Steven is hurt that he never knew. Nicodemus explains that he got sick of training early on and left to return to the realm of mortal man. He found a girl crushed in a rock slide and brought her back to life with the little magic he'd picked up. He returns to Mr. Pavlish on death's door, but his magic, while initially successful, fills Pavlish up like a balloon until pop. Timely found out about him and covered up Pavlish's death, knowing that West's knowledge of magic could help them down the line. In turn, he became the CEO of Timely and never practiced magic again. Until today. Strange breaks out. He was just letting West talk himself into a corner. He wants the cure for cancer, but Dr. West corrects him. The elixir can cure every disease in existence. Strange sees this as a blessing. West, a curse. In a few years' time, without disease to cull the herd, the world will become even more overpopulated. He blasts Dr. Strange. Night Nurse calls out to him. He's fine, but that's not it. Wong is dead. West sympathetically offers up a crash cart, but Strange chains him up. Wong won't survive a trip to the hospital. He needs the elixir now, but they find West missing. He's gone to destroy the potion. West is about to pour it down a sink when Steven stops him. Strange knows that he's had ample opportunities to destroy the elixir, but deep down he can't because he knows it could help the human race. Dr. West has spent the past several years blaming Mr. Pavlish's death on magic. But if the elixir works, it proves not all magic is bad, and West will have to accept that it wasn't magic, but his incompetence that killed Mr. Pavlish. West freaks out and attacks, but Steven wards him off. He forgave West a long time ago and accepted his own responsibility in the accident. They teleport up to the roof, and West casts a spell that will keep them both from using magic for the next 3 minutes. West gets in several punches, but Strange was rope-a-doping him, waiting for him to get winded. Wong has been a superb teacher in the martial arts, and Strange wails on Nicodemus. Dr. West loses his footing and falls off the building with the elixir. With the earlier spell still in effect, Steven cannot save him. A moment later, his magic returns, and he floats down to find that the rain has washed away most of the elixir. West appears in his astral form. Steven could reproduce the elixir, or he can use the last drop to save Wong's life. West's body is dying, and he begins to fade away, wondering if Steven can damn the world to save his friend, or if he can withhold needed treatment for the greater good. Which is the greater oath? The doctors or the sorcerers? The sorcerers? Wong wakes up in bed, healthy and well. His cancer is now in remission. Damn it! Why do I always read and write these reviews simultaneously? Why don't I ever read the comic first, then write the review? Wong saved Steven's life last night and will save it again, no doubt. Keeping him alive was the least Steven could do. Night Nurse takes him out of Wong's room to treat his wounds. She guesses that Steven is bitter. Timely's board of directors will get away with their part in the destruction of the elixir. But Night Nurse grabbed a rather incriminating memo from West's office. It should ruin the board's day. Steven's so happy he offers the sanctum to her so she can continue to treat superheroes until such time as her clinic is rebuilt. They kiss. It's like a 1970s episode of General Hospital when being mauled by a doctor with a terrible mustache was every nurse's dream. Now it's just kind of creepy. So that's Doctor Strange the Oath. Not the best Doctor Strange story I've ever read, but it was nowhere near the worst. Did it deliver what you'd expect from Marvel's Sorcerer Supreme, or did all the ingredients spell something different? Let's take a closer look. To be honest, the biggest problem I had with this Doctor Strange comic was Doctor Strange. He's written here as fairly arrogant, extremely dismissive, and sexist and totally self-absorbed. Mind you, I am coming off of Jason Aaron and Chris Bocciolo's Doctor Strange run, which was a lot of fun, and presented both Strange and Wong as more thoughtful, fully rounded characters. My biggest problem with Strange was his treatment of Night Nurse. You know what truly bothered me? He never once asked her name. She was completely invisible to him, except for the few times she stood up for herself and forced him to acknowledge her and her importance. Then he usually responded with a comment about her looks. I can see why he wanted to kiss her at the end. I just have no idea why she'd want to kiss him back. Strange's only real redeeming quality in this book is his friendship with Wong. Vaughn makes you believe it when Steven is afraid to lose his friend. The fear and anger at his own impotence to cure Wong comes pouring out of the Sorcerer. Another thing that bothered me was how he handled Brigand. Steven shouldn't be punishing human criminals in bizarre ways. Yes, to demons and other magicians, just not thieves who can be contained and punished by normal human methods. It just raises all sorts of who made you God ethical implications. As for the other characters, Wong is underwritten, reduced to a dutiful servant who doesn't want to be a burden character. Night Nurse was probably the most interesting of the trio. We really should have seen this more through her eyes, as she could act as our gateway into this world of superheroes and magic. She and Wong do manage some genuine moments of heroism. Dr. West is an interesting villain, a man who tried his best but kept falling short. I found the explanation for his having magic a little overly simple for my taste, but I like that he wrestles with the duality of doctor and magician. The idea of two beneficial oaths being in complete conflict with one another is a fascinating idea, but one I wish Vaughn had explored more with Doctor Strange. In the story we see, he spends so much time heading towards the elixir, he never stops to consider what he's going to do with it. As for the art, I've said in past reviews that I enjoy Marcos Martin's art. This is an earlier example, and frankly, it doesn't really suit Doctor Strange. He's best with more grounded characters like Daredevil or Spider-Man. Here it feels like a watered-down Tim Sale, but not as stylized as Sale's. Doctor Strange inhabits a fantastic world, but even things like oversized cat gods fail to amaze or inspire. It's not entirely Marcos' fault, I just don't think his style suits Doctor Strange, but again, I'm coming off seeing Strange through Chris Bocciolo's wonderful, bizarre art. Without a doubt, Brian Vaughn and Marcos Martin are two of the best creators in the business, but lightning doesn't always strike even when you've got all the elements that make it possible. This is a good story with an interesting moral dilemma. It just never delivers as well as I'd like. A competent story, not a great one. I give Doctor Strange The Oath 2.5 out of 5 stars. I can't say you should go out of your way to read this, but if given a chance, I can think of worse stories to read. Thank you for your continued support of me and my show. It truly means the world to me. Until next time, my friends, this is Comic Book Issues, and I'm your host, Brian Heinz, the Last Angry Geek.